Hello, everyone, and I've got a very special guest on here today, Diane Morrison from West Massachusetts, isn't it?
Western Massachusetts, yeah.
Great. And
Yeah.
she's a level 3 QHHT practitioner. And how long have you been practicing for?
Well, I started my training in 2011, so I've been a practitioner for it's a decade now, 10 years. So when
Wow.
yeah.
I'm fascinated to know, and some people in the audience are not familiar with QHHT, Dolores Cannon, her method. I want you to explain that in your own words to people, what it is, how you came to find it. Yeah, I'd love to hear.
Sure. I mean, I usually just say it's a very natural process where we get in touch with our inner knowingness and our innate healing abilities through deep relaxation that we call hypnosis. So that's all hypnosis is. And I think people have a lot of ideas. So I like to make it clear. It's very deep state of relaxation. It's very natural. And we're naturally in this state a couple times a day before sleep and before we wake up. So I like people to know it's very natural. It's simple. This is something we all can do. But we can also, when we have it guided by a practitioner, we can access parts of ourselves that we are not as aware of in our busy daily lives. So it's very powerful. People can activate their own healing ability. So
Yeah,
it's good.
it's fascinating. And how did you personally come to discover Dolores? And I think from what I understand, you worked with her personally, right?
She was my teacher. Yeah. Yeah. For all the levels. Yeah. I was very fortunate. And Julia was assisting her back then. So now Julia has taken over the training, which is wonderful. But yeah, I got to work directly with Dolores Cannon.
What
Very
was
big
that
blessing.
experience like? What was she like as a human being that we kind of what we don't see publicly or didn't see publicly? What was she like?
Well, I'm going to say she is very authentic. So what you see is what you get. But I think the things that I admired the most was her strength and her focus and her clarity. Just sitting in the classroom with her teaching. Oh my goodness, when she looked at you in the eye, you could feel it. This woman had such clarity, such focus, such energy. Um, so powerful in the way that she delivered the messages, and she captured everybody's attention. Dolores walked in the room and sat down. Everybody was waiting eagerly to hear the wisdom from her. So it was fantastic, super clear, super lovely, very big heart, but a strong woman. I know she has this persona that we all know. She looks like a church grandmother, which she
Yeah.
was. Yeah. Um, but she also was incredibly strong, um, and she made sure that the classroom was a place where people could learn. So if somebody was, kind of having trouble focusing or something, she had no problem setting that straight. And I love to see that this older woman who was completely in command of her own energy field, her power, in her power, and knew how to use it appropriately. She blew my mind. I loved her
Yeah.
every second. Everybody loved her, but I mean, just a special woman.
Yeah, very, very special. And had such huge influences on so many of our lives, including myself. I've been, as a lot of
Yeah.
I'm a practitioner myself and wouldn't be doing what I'm doing today without her work. And she really is a forerunner, I think, for so many of us now, to kind of bring us into our own power. But I have felt this, and I'm not sure if you agree with this, but I felt like even since her passing, her work has even been catapulted even more so to the forefront, and is getting such wide distribution, throughout the whole world. Her books are being read, I think, more than ever.
Yeah.
So it's exciting to see.
It is. And I'm going to share a little bit. When I was in my level 1 training, she used to have somebody from the audience that she would demonstrate the technique on. So I think when she was doing the session for all of us to observe, she said, well, I understand, this is going to be the the technique of the future. She said this to the higher self in that part of the session. And the higher self said, this is going to be the technique of now. And it really, that was 2011 where it was saying now. And we used to always ask things like, you know, are we going to be busy? Are we going to have sessions? And the higher self would always say things like, you are going to be so busy. This is going to be like the thing that everybody is going to come to. But it was almost like everybody needs to be trained and places everyone. And now that the word has spread so much, the demand is increasing. I see it a lot. I feel it. And this is what Dolores set up for us with traveling the world and teaching all over the world and writing all those books and then having Julia in place to take over. It's like a divine plan is unfolding, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I see that too. It's amazing how, you know, affected people are when they have a session. That was going to be the next question I was going to ask you. What is the most profound thing that comes to mind that you've seen out of one of your sessions?
Oh gosh, I'm going to do it. I'm going to say it. Yeah. So, I mean, it was the most memorable session that I had, and I don't know how your audience will respond to this. So I'm going to say it with awareness that not everybody has heard of all the things that can come through in sessions. But I did have a gentleman who had had some interesting experiences. He had felt like he had met the other beings. We're going to say it like that. Now, this could be our guides, our angels. It could be anybody in that sense that there's a helper being, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
But people are more comfortable with light beings or angels or guides. And that's, I believe, the category that everything fits into. If we're having an experience where we're meeting other beings, it's usually because they're part of our guidance team and they're helping us. So this gentleman had had some experiences and he was very much tracking it, writing all the data down because he was intrigued by it. And then when he went in his session, a being started talking from this group that was part of his guidance team, we'll say. And I was blown away because I was talking to this other being that was so wise. It was like, if we think of the wise elders of the Bible and things like that, it was like speaking to the source of wisdom. And his voice got very, very soft. And there was a different dialect to the voice. And I had to kind of lean in because it was so soft I could barely hear it. But I was on the edge of my seat, as close to him as I could be, and just soaking up this loving, beautiful energy and wisdom that this guide was providing. And the entire session was the dialogue with this beautiful being that volunteered information and told him why he was chosen as the one that they were helping and studying too. But they were actually, I'll tell you why, because I don't want to leave it a secret, but they were actually monitoring humanity to see how ready they were for the changes that were coming. And they were, through him, they were testing him to see how we were doing with the energy shifting, the increase in the energy. So he was a volunteer for that.
Wow. And I think like a lot of people won't kind of understand this terminology, but Dolores described it as the sambulistic state, that true sambulistic state. And it's almost as though, and it sounds like it was in this particular case with this gentleman, where they become a different person. They're almost a channel to some other being coming through. And do you see that as a rarity in your practice? How often would you see someone truly obtain that level where they're in that really deep state of trance?
Well, I'm going to say that we have been through the years, we've clarified the term and the definition for so many people, because I think that there's a sense that only some people go there, or it only happens when something like that shift happens and it sounds like another person, even though it's probably an aspect of that person comes through. But really, Dolores and Julia tried really hard to explain that the somnambulistic state of trance is basically when you're starting to see the life, when you're starting to see the images, and you're starting to convey what you're seeing as a story unfolding, like a lifetime. We call it a past life. So anytime anybody is under and they're starting to receive the information and then describe it as if that was them, like, oh, I'm wearing, something that looks like a sheet, and I have sandals on, and oh, the sand is all over the place, and oh, I see the house, where I live. That is being in the somnambulistic state. They can also be pretty aware when they're in that state, because as we know, the consciousness of humanity is rising. So people can be in that state and more aware now than they used to be.
Yeah, and I've experienced that as well, because I would imagine you'll be along the same lines here. Most people do remember after coming out of the state, the experience. And sometimes they might forget little chunks, but I don't think I've come across one person yet that completely doesn't remember anything. Have you seen that yourself, where someone?
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Oh, sure. I mean, I usually try to explain it to people too, that because everybody's now able to know Dolores's work, her videos are out there, her books are out there, and things are changing rapidly with the energy on the planet. So when she used to do sessions, we'll say 40 plus years ago, the consciousness of humanity was at a different level than it is now. We're really waking up, speeding up. So I explained to people that it used to be that the conscious mind of humanity was like a little denser, so that they almost had to kind of go out and under in a deeper way to have the higher self come in and deliver the goods, and then recede, and then up they come. Oh, did I fall asleep? Not anymore.
Yeah.
Now consciousness of humanity is way up. It's almost closer to the higher self now. They're riding shotgun,
Yeah,
side by
no, you explained that perfectly, and I think that will be very relatable for people, because I know people that haven't had a lot of experience with hypnosis. They have that fear, don't they, that they're going to be out of control, that they'll almost be in some trance they don't remember, and that and that's hard for people to learn to trust you. And I think this is why these sessions go for so long, is because people really get an opportunity to build that trust so that they're ready to allow their higher self to come in.
Yes. I think there's so much misunderstanding about what hypnosis is. And I'm so glad there are so many practitioners all over the world now, because it's an opportunity for people to access hypnosis as a form of self-healing. And it is being studied now by traditional medicine. It is being utilized for all kinds of procedures now. So thank goodness it's becoming more common, and people don't have to stay in fear anymore. Like, fear disappears when we gather new information, right? So so we're helping people to access something that's incredibly powerful for them to use to help themselves.
And actually, you might know more about this than I do. I remember reading a while ago that hypnosis has been around, I think, dating back to Egyptian times, right? Like, it's been practiced,
I think so,
for a very long time. Obviously, we thought it was a new phenomena that came about and probably got a bit of a bad rep, didn't it, through stage hypnotists, which sort of, I guess, novelized it in a lot of ways, and probably gave it a bad rep. But there's a big distinction between a stage hypnotist, isn't there, and hypnotherapy, which is kind of the banner that this falls under.
Yeah. I mean, I like to try to clarify, because I think everybody has an image in their mind of clucking like a chicken or something because of the performance entertainment hypnosis, right? But this is very different, because it's a technique that uses hypnosis for self-healing. So obviously already our intention is completely different. It's not entertainment, it's not performance, it's healing work. So there's a completely different feel, different intention, different purpose for it. And actually, when you think about it, hypnosis is actually a natural state. And so altered states have been something that almost all spiritual traditions and all peoples around the globe have always used to gather insight or gain wisdom from spirit. So we are talking about something that is ancient and it's been around forever. And people have always kind of experimented with altered states in various ways. But I like this way because it's natural.
Totally. And even you saying that, I was just thinking that, I think even advertisers know of the power of hypnosis, because I know even in advertising campaigns, they will use, hypnotic suggestion. You might be watching, for example, a television ad, and there'll be things going on in the background that have been built into that commercial that will kind of make subtle suggestions. Do you know a lot about that and how that's even used in a wide, arena like advertising?
It has always been that way. And I mean, I remember taking a college class in, I think it was 1982 in San Diego. And they were showing us a film about how suggestive advertising has always been there. It's been the main way that they can influence people to buy things, buy products. And I remember it was kind of funny, but they were talking about, it's usually about sex or something else related to sex, right? And they showed films of all these images, and we just sat back and went, I never thought of it that way before, but once they explained it, it was so amazingly clear that it was manipulative. We could say that.
Yeah. So I think you raise a good point, can be used in a negative way. Obviously, that is completely the reverse of what happens in the QHHT session, because it's very self-empowering, isn't it, for the individual? They're always in control, and everything is being designed for their highest good, for them to heal and to grow. So it's there's no safety issue, but it can be perhaps used in different forms through advertising that may not be for someone's highest good, particularly when trying to sell them something maybe they don't need, or something that's not good for their body in some way, like bad food or something like that.
I think it's always always know what the intention of what you're doing is or what you're watching is, because obviously if we're watching programming on a television, that's, programming is to influence us in some ways. But intention for quantum healing hypnosis technique is always to help the person, to help themselves. And it is empowering. And that's one of the things I love about Dolores and her work, is that she wanted people to know who they are so that they can make their best decisions for themselves and trust themselves and their inner knowingness. So they aren't so dependent on programming from other people or inherited belief systems that we all have, hand-me-down belief systems from other generations in our lineage and from cultures and systems and such. She didn't want us to have to feel dependent on other people's thoughts or ways of living. She wanted us to go directly to the source of all knowing within us. So that woman was amazing and clear about this was a technique to help empower people so they could use that for their own good, and then of course for the good of everyone.
Yeah, I wanted to good point there. I wanted to ask you about, Dolores spoke a lot about in her books about the new earth, and I shared recently that I've just finished reading The 3 Waves of Volunteers and the New Earth, which I know I'm going to go back to and reread because it's just so profound. What's your view from her writings and your own experience of the new earth that she's talking about? Can you maybe even describe that to the audience that maybe have not heard of that concept, the new earth? In your words, how do you describe that?
To me, it's actually a shift in consciousness. And the shift comes when we understand that we can tune in and create different realities for ourselves by what we focus on. So understanding that, okay, this might be a little far out, but sometimes it's good to just throw out a couple concepts that there are multiple realities we can tune into. We can tune into a reality where there are people suffering on the world, because that's always there. And it's very powerful. We can also tune into somebody who is excelling at sports and they're breaking new records. And that's exhilarating and fun. And that's happening at the same time that the suffering is happening on the earth. So that's 2 different realities. One is people are enhancing performance. One is people are suffering and sad. and they are both happening. But when you look at this one, when the person is enhancing performance and breaking records, you're excited and you're happy. It changes your feeling. It changes your energy. When you look at this suffering, you feel sad and down, and that's okay. We're humans and we feel a lot, which is beautiful. But we can have different realities and tune in and feel different ways to each one. So in terms of our lives, I think it's a relatively new popular concept that we create our own reality. This has been around forever, but only small groups of people on the planet used to know this. They were usually the educated people or the priests or the priestesses that had higher levels of awareness.
Yeah,
but now,
and even some of the great spiritual teachers as well, you know, like Jesus and the Buddha and some other people throughout the centuries really probably did reach that state of enlightenment, or, you know, finding the kingdom of heaven within, I think, is the way Jesus articulated that. But this is becoming more widestream, isn't it? More mainstream in this time we are right now.
It is, and thankfully we have the internet, which helps us to learn more, and more people from around the world have access to this information. So information and wisdom is spreading like wildfire, which is a great thing. So now we're learning these concepts. We create our own reality. Dolores used to have a saying where somebody would bring something up and she'd just go, "Not in my world." And it's sort of like she would just say it like it was. In her world, she focused on amazing things, mind expanding things, consciousness raising things, blowing the lid off of any concept we had about what is possible with healing. She focused on that. Her world was good. And we all wanted to be a part of it because it was so good. And so that's what she tried to help people understand. What you focus on expands. So if people can hear this and experiment with it yourself, try it. Try focusing on what you want. Try focusing on what you love and what makes you happy. Try it for a day and see how you feel at the end of the day.
And I think you articulated that so well. It's something that I talk about often, is that what we focus on becomes dominant in our life. And this is why, you know, we become self-empowered when we realize that, because when we realize it's not something out there that's, I guess, plaguing us, that we're creating our reality with our words and our thoughts and our actions, it gives us our power back. And then we can pivot into the direction that we want to move in. So I'll ask you this question. What would be advice to someone right now that maybe is listening to this, that is stuck in negative belief patterns, and they're struggling to pay the bills and struggling to get ahead in life? Where would someone like that start?
You know, I'm going to say the first thought that comes to mind, because that's usually our higher self. The word was gratitude. And what comes through is, and what we know to be so from like research, and backs this up too, is that even though it might seem like everything is grim in our lives and we're in a stuck place or a heavy place and it's not fun, if we just start to say, I am grateful for whatever small thing we can think of. I'm grateful that I'm alive, that I have a chance, like every day I wake up, I have a chance to do something differently and try to make things better. So I'm grateful for my life. I'm grateful that I have a roof over my head. I am grateful that I have bills to pay, which means that I have services that I'm allowed to have or can have. So it might be starting small, you know, it might be starting so small, but there is something that is powerful about gratitude. And I read a study once. It said it is physiologically impossible to feel both grateful and stressed at the same time because of the way that our brain works with chemistry.
Yeah, really good point. Yeah, really good point. It's right. And I shared this experience just recently, but I had sort of more news time over the last week that I was consuming news content. And I really noticed that my whole vibration really did, you know, it just dropped a level, and I was feeling more stressed, more consumed with mental activity around the negative. And I really had to push myself back to where I was previously and say, you need to limit that news consumption because that's having an effect on your state of being. And since I've done that, I feel lighter. I'm not as worried about, some of the predominance. But news is a great example because I think it's hard to find these days anyway a lot of positive news, right? It's generally coming from a negative place, focusing and expanding the things that are, wrong with our world. Would that be something
Right.
that you would recommend as well to people you work with, just limiting consumption of negativity?
Yes, I mean, I've done it myself. I haven't had a television, I haven't had TV service for years. Might be 6 years now. I haven't had it. So I can watch DVDs if I want, or I can do that, but I don't usually because I'm usually involved with other things that make me happy.
Yeah.
So I agree that even first, I think people are afraid to even let go of their, TV time because they think they need it. I mean, it
Yes.
convinces us that we need it because there's always a crisis a minute and you got to stay up on that. This is an addictive type of process, right? So I think if people understand that first pay attention to how you feel when you're watching the programming and then turn it off. Go for a walk in nature, talk with your family, pet your dog or your cat, do something else that's more natural in your daily routine. See how you feel when
Yeah.
you do that.
And I don't
Experiment.
think there's a more pressing time either, because we're seeing on a global scale a lot of fear being propagated through media. And I think, I'm certainly noticing a lot of people are affected by that. They maybe are in isolating situations at the moment
Yes.
where they're kind of surrounded by so much negativity. There's very little for them to focus on. And that's why we do what we do. And we create these channels and to give people a place to pivot in a different direction, to start to feed their mind with positivity. But you raised something that I want you to expand a little bit on. What is the importance of connecting to nature? And for someone that maybe doesn't understand that concept, how would you articulate in your words how much that it does affect our vibration?
Yeah. Well, I will tell you, Dolores used to say that the earth is ascending. And then she used to say, she doesn't care if humanity goes with her. We're like fleas
Yeah.
on a dog to
Please
her.
on
We've caused so much trouble. That's what she said. So I feel like earth is changing, the vibration of earth and all of nature, and that includes us, is changing. Our frequency is rising, and this is good. It's helping us to be lighter. And it's also helping us to bring up some other heavy stuff that needs to be cleared. But nature vibrates at the new frequency. So the earth is vibrating at the new frequency. And when we put our feet on the earth and when we go out and take a nature walk or just go outside and look at the sky or the trees or whatever part of nature we want to focus on, we start to have more of a harmonic resonance with the energy of earth as opposed to the energy of technology and fear. So we are actually tapping in, tuning in to more of a oneness vibration, a natural sort of connectedness that is pervasive in nature and the universe. So we become more at one with our universe, our earth, ourselves. We become more naturally aligned with the frequency of the entire creation. Now, why wouldn't we do that? It feels good.
It's amazing. Actually, I was out yesterday with a friend of mine, and we went to a lovely park here near where I live, and she pointed out a tree that was probably about nearly 200 years old. And she said, I hug this tree every day and I just receive its energy and feel the vibration of it. So she said, you go and hug that tree and just feel that tree, feel that sensation. So I did go through that action and I hugged the tree and I just became really still. And I really started to connect with its energy. And I felt like the thoughts in my head began to dissipate. I felt more energy in my body and I started to really connect and feel that oneness.
Yes.
So although that may
Good.
sound a bit outlandish to a lot of people, hugging a tree, there is life and energy in it that we can really partake of. And it may be not doing the action of hugging a tree, but it might be sitting under one and meditating, or just being in nature and
Yes.
being a part of it, because I think it really does get us out of this very artificial world that we have sort of assimilated into, particularly in like Western countries, where we're so addicted now to technology. We're on a screen most of the time, and we've lost that connection with the earth.
Yeah. Yeah, it's sort of an artificial energy, but it is part of creation too. So we have to be mindful. We're creators, so we're creating too. And this is technology as a creation. However, it has a different energy or frequency that we need to probably balance better with natural energy, so that we stay balanced ourselves. It's a different kind of energy. So
Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
yeah, it's about paying attention, really, and not just getting sucked in and letting ourselves, get too involved with the technology without taking a break, even like taking 10 minutes off of a focused task online or something. 10 minutes away from electronics every hour is not really that big of a deal, and it is helpful to just break that connection and get back to yourself again, so that you don't lose your natural connection with the
Yeah,
natural
good
energy.
point. Because look,
Yeah.
I mean, to be honest with you, we all use it in, even in our work. I'm using social
Yeah.
media and making videos and doing stuff online. So it serves actually a great purpose. But you're right. It's
Yeah.
really important that we can still utilize these things as tools, but not be defined by them, and to honor our natural roots to the earth and to ourselves by staying connected. That's why for me, and I wanted to ask you this as the next question, is what do you do as a daily practice? Do you
Yeah.
describe to the audience what you do every day to get your charge?
Yes. Okay. So I just saw a video of you talking about daily practices too.
Yeah.
So that's sort of fun. Yeah. And I wrote it down on my paper because it's so important. When I started QHHT, I had this knowingness that I wanted to find a spiritual teacher for myself, because that is the most important thing to me, to be connected to spirit.
Yeah.
So, um, in order to help myself, so I could help other people better to help themselves, I chose a teacher. My teacher's name is Mirabai Devi, and she's kind of an international spiritual teacher. And I entered part of a program called the Lightworker Training Program, which is just an ongoing program, and we work on ourselves. I felt like I wanted to commit to my work on myself so that I could help other people better. I always want to be doing the work on myself because I have my issues and I have things that crop up for me, and I want to have tools and I want to be working on me. If I'm going to help you be working on you, I better be helping me work on me. That's how I feel like it's only fair, right?
Ah,
We all have to work on ourselves. So because of that program, I have a series of prayers that I do every day. I have mantras that I do every day. And also, I meditate and then ask for guidance. So I do guided writing every day. Now, I don't make it every day. I used to do better at this, but as things got a little busy and I lost my focus, see, this is the thing, back to the practices I go. When I get away, when I lose my focus and maybe miss a couple days, like you, I don't feel good. I am off.
mm.
I am not as aligned as I need to be. And I get cranky and I do things that are lower frequency.
And that's why that's why I hone in on that, the importance of a daily practice, because it's kind of like your physical body. If you didn't eat for a day, which is still going to survive if you don't eat for a day, you're not going to feel great. You're going to feel
Yeah.
depleted. You're going to feel like you're not running at your optimal energy. And I think it's the same spiritually speaking, and our attitudes and all of that are really affected by what we're putting in. So I like to start my day with meditating. And some people say, I don't have time. Even if that's 5 minutes, 5 minutes is
Yeah.
probably enough to start with, of just going
Mhm.
into your, quieting the mind, feeling your body, kind of going into a relaxed state. And
Yeah.
it does really set you up for the day onto a positive trajectory, I find,
I do too.
when you
Completely
go
agree with
into
you.
that. So that's why I
Yeah.
always, really hone in for people that is such an important building block for our spirituality.
Yes.
Where did it all start for you, with your, I guess, awakening journey? When did you
Mm.
start
Yeah.
to come on this path?
Well, it was really I was young in a way. Because I'm older now, but I was about 18, and I'm going to say it did happen through adversity. So adversity can be a great teacher, but I was at a crossroads in my life. Things were not going well, and I had made some choices that put me in a pretty deep hole, uh, and it was pretty dark and heavy. So I was not in a good place. And at that point where I was pretty low in my life. Some things happened to me. And I will say that there is that still quiet voice inside that guides us. And if we quiet down and have a hypnosis session or relax, we can hear it better. And it's our higher self. And so I was introduced to my higher self through that. I could call it a dark night of the soul, a heavy time in my life when I was young. And that shocked me into a new perspective, a new reality. I didn't know you could hear that voice. I wasn't sure what it was, but I knew it was good and it was helping me. So that was my introduction to, oh, there's something more than I knew. So it really helped me break free. It wasn't that there wasn't work to do after that, because there was a lot of work I had to do on myself. But that was an awakening. Oh my gosh, like, hi. Thanks. Thanks for talking to me and helping me get out of this pickle that I was in, you could say. So that was my first wake up, that there's more to this than we know. There's more to us than just the physical. And it helped me to start getting on my path, which I also heard that voice say, helping people help themselves. So that taught me that I was supposed to be here to help people, but I had to get myself together first. So that was the awakening.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think that's such a good a point. Is, it's hard to offer healing to others when we're in a state of, disease ourselves, when we're not fully, healed of our own trauma and past. And I remember this personally. One thing that one video that I watched of Dolores Cannon really started the process is, she said, you cannot come into your power. You cannot really do what you're supposed to do until you've forgiven the past and forgiven people in the past. And it was a
Yeah.
really, I'd heard that concept before by others, and grew up a Christian, so I always knew the importance of forgiveness. But when she said it, there was a potency, and I guess an energy to that I really got it for the first time. I really knew that that's what I needed to do. And that's what really started my own forgiveness journey, that, has now, I think, come into fruition, where those people that hurt me in my past, I don't even feel that pain. How important, in your view, is forgiveness and people
Oh my gosh.
forgiving
Yeah.
those?
Sorry. Yeah. 100% important. I feel like it's gratitude and forgiveness are my top two favorite things for healing. And mostly Dolores talked about it. I know my spiritual teacher talks about it. Healing, forgiveness is the path to healing almost anything.
Yeah,
It helps us to let go of the heaviness inside of us
yeah,
that could that could
absolutely.
it could create dis-ease, discomfort in the body if we hold it for a long enough time. So yeah, forgiveness is paramount,
Is
really.
that something that you see a lot of with your clients that come to see you? Do you see that as one of the big issues that people face,
Yeah.
where maybe they've got, disease in their body, or they've got other emotional things going on? Do you often see that is the root cause of so many of their ailments in life?
Yes, and I think that it can be other people, but it can also be ourselves. I think we're the last to forgive ourselves. Like, we're taught to forgive others, but I don't think there's much enough teaching on
Yeah,
forgiving
good.
yourself
Yeah.
too.
That's a wonderful,
Yeah.
I'm glad you said that. That's a wonderful thing. I think we often neglect ourselves, even in that process of, we forget that forgiving ourselves is imperative. And I know for a lot of people, that can be a really hard concept, particularly if there's something in their life that they feel a lot of guilt or shame around, or they've hurt somebody else. It's very hard for someone to kind of let that go, isn't it?
It is, and actually, I remember doing it myself. I felt like I had made mistakes in my life, so at least I could help other people, so maybe they wouldn't have to make the same mistakes or feel like I felt, but I felt like there was no hope for me. So that was like a problem, that I was feeling like other people had a chance to heal, but not me. I was not, I wasn't going to be able to make that. It was such a strange thing that I didn't get that part for a long time. So I did it myself, oh, I'll help other people and tell them these things are good to do, but I'm a lost cause is sort of what I was saying, right? Which is not true. We know this, but yeah,
Absolutely.
I
Yeah.
felt
And
that.
so what
Yeah.
if someone came into you, and I'm sure this happens often, someone comes to you and says, you don't know what they did to me, I can't forgive
Hmm.
this person. I was
Yeah.
abused by that person, and they really have held on to that for so long. What do you typically say to a
Mhm.
person that would have that argument?
Yeah, this is a good one because it happens a lot. And just because of my life and my work and what I've learned, I like to share things that might help people. So I basically say, okay, so this is what happened to you. I'm gonna guess that that person learned that from somewhere, and that probably these are just hand me down behaviors. So until somebody wakes up and says, wait, this isn't working, we are all going to be passing on to other people through our families and everything behavior that we've had happen to us. So in some ways we need to open our minds and our vision a little bit wider. It's just not, it's bigger than just that person hurt me. That person was hurt too, probably, most likely,
Yeah, most of the
probability
time.
wise.
Yeah. I remember a
Yeah.
saying that I always love this one, hurting people hurt people. And it can be very unconscious. You raised a really good point where it's generational, and often our greatest hurt and trauma is experienced within our own families. And it may be our parents, and then we go on to maybe do the same to our kids, and the cycle continues. But we can break the cycle, can't we? We can really,
Mhm.
by applying forgiveness, it really does kind of free us from this generational, unconscious pattern. It kind of removes us from the equation and frees us. And hopefully then
Yeah.
we can pass it on to the next, where they're not, enslaved, so to speak, by this way of unconscious. Because I think
Mhm.
often people that abuse us, they're doing it unconsciously. And now I'm
Yeah,
not trying to give a license to somebody,
I know.
to abuse, and people need to be accountable for their actions. It's not making it okay, but often people are doing it very unconsciously. They don't realize that they're doing it. And that's why often people don't get the apologies that they want to from their abusers,
Yeah.
because they're not really even aware they did it.
Right. They don't understand that, like, there is that thing, forgive them, Lord, for they know not what they do. Like, they're
Yeah.
really they're unconscious about what's happening. They may be in denial too. They may be completely in denial. So they're suppressing it in themselves because they're probably horrified that they did something like that, but they're in denial. They are really unconscious. So you're not going to get something from them that you want, but your path to freedom, our path to freedom is forgiving them, not so much for them, which I think we're taught that it's for the other person. No, that's for you to be able to heal and let
Yeah.
go,
And it's
right?
impossible to get that without, it's really fully impossible to heal without really forgiving, because we stay stuck, and we stay stuck to that person that abused us, or that we experienced that trauma from. So I think that's a really powerful thing to learn, because often the thing that keeps us held back is our inability to let go of the past. But when we
Yeah, we're
do,
holding on to it. Yeah.
yeah. And I think the
Yeah.
reason, I did this personally. I held on to unforgiveness because it gave me a perceived power of being in control, right? And do you see that as well with people? It's like, well, I can't change that I was abused 20 years ago, 50 years ago, however long it was, but I can hold on to this resentment as a form of payback to feel like there's some justice being served by
Yeah,
hating on that
justice.
person, by maybe even if we, within our family, we may, degrade that person. We feel that we have control, but it's not really the case, is it? It just keeps us stuck and bound to that person and unable
Yes.
to heal.
Yeah, that's so powerful. That is what happens. It actually keeps us stuck. It keeps us connected to the pain and we can't let go. And we don't even know we're the ones that are holding on.
So
It's
where
kind of
would someone
unconscious.
start?
Yeah.
Where would you say if someone's listening to this today and they're saying, well, I know now from what you're
Yeah.
saying, and now I need to
Yeah.
forgive. Where do they start? How do
Oh,
they
that's
start that
beautiful.
process?
No, that's beautiful because I mean, I know two techniques. One is Dolores's and one is my spiritual teacher's, Mirabai Davies. And they're both very similar because everybody who's in healing work kind of at some point will find that the root of all ailment is this kind of unforgiveness and holding on to something because it's unresolved. So basically, one way to do it is you can sit down by yourself, usually is a good idea. You can imagine talking to that person's higher self. A lot of times you would not want to talk to the person about what you're going to do for yourself here, but you would talk to their higher self, explain everything that happened, how you felt about it, what you think about them. You really are like mentally being able to acknowledge your true feelings about the incident and what happened, not to them in person. No way. They will not be able to handle it. It will not go well for either you or them.
And some
Just
of
do
them
it
may be
by
dead, right? Some may not even be
yes,
alive
yeah,
anymore.
true.
Yeah.
Good point. So yes, this will be something you do on your own in a private space, in a sacred space. And by that I mean in a very loving kind of protective way. Create your own protective space. Do this, a real honest talk. You hurt me. I felt like this. I'm mad at you, blah, 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 blah. This has been hurting me for so long. You just tell your truth to the air, And at the end of it, you can say, and I forgive you. I forgive you for all of it. For whatever reason you had to do that, but I didn't have to like it. And now I'm going to forgive you because I don't want to continue this pain process or this pain thing. Now, Dolores's way is to say, I forgive you. Oh, she would say, go through the contract, like, okay, we did our best. It didn't work out the way that we thought it would. But now let's agree that we'll end the contract. Let's tear up the contract, whatever our soul agreement was. We don't have to do this again. And then she would go, I forgive you. I release you. I let you go. Now you go your way with much love and thanks for the lessons learned, and I'll go mine. I forgive you. I release you. I let you go. So it's a process of mentally airing out your dirty laundry, letting your heart open up and let the feelings come out too. And if you cry, you cry. And if you get mad, you get mad. It's about releasing that energy from your mind and your heart and your body, letting it go.
It's a
And then
purging,
really,
so to speak, isn't it? Of the energy that's
it
been
is.
lodged in the body. And that's just what often sickness is a manifestation of, is just a lodgement of energy, build up energy that's just not been resolved. What would you say to someone that said, I can forgive, but I can't forget? Or that they, by me forgiving that person, what if it makes what they did to me okay? What would you say to that person?
You can say that the person has the right to decide if it's okay or not. It's okay for the person to have these feelings. I think it's okay for you to say it's not okay for you to beat me or whatever, fill in the blank. It's not okay for you to do that. And I know it's not okay. I'm saying it's not okay for you to do that. So no, it's not okay. But I'm also saying, I understand you have your troubles too. And that's how you took them out on me. That was more about you than it was about me. but now I'm hurt, so I'm going to do my forgiveness, blah, blah, blah. You can go through that kind of thing. But I think if somebody said, I can forgive, but I can't forget, I would say, then what is it that you don't want to forget? What is the lesson you learned from that experience? Because we create to learn. So if
and
we
that's
learned
often
anything,
why we have these things in life. They're lessons that we've maybe, I know you'll be the same way of thinking that I am. From a higher perspective, we do choose the lessons that we want to learn and have in this life. And often they're going to be in circumstances that are not pleasant. In order to, I think you said something earlier about we do our greatest growth through adversity. When things are quite tough, that's when we grow. If we planned out a perfect little life that nothing really ever happened, I mean, it wouldn't make much of a story. And every movie is kind of based on that premise of you kind of need the hero's journey of, you need the disaster, you need someone to overcome, otherwise there's no movie, there's no story. So it's similar with our lives, isn't it? That we need to traverse adversity to overcome something in life.
Yeah, it's absolutely a great teacher. It's not always handled with grace, but it's a great teacher. And the other kind of lives are called resting lives, if they're kind of fluffy and light. Well, that maybe they had a couple horrendous lives and then they just needed a rest. So they come in and have a little cream puff life, and that's okay too for when you need it. But mostly if you want a life of growth, which actually I did, and I learned this, and I know this, that I actually love growing, and I came into this life to learn. So exactly what happened to me was perfect. It didn't feel good. I'm not going to lie. It didn't feel good, and it didn't feel good for a very long time, but it got me to here now, and I'm really grateful that I'm here now. So everything's working. And
Beautiful.
it represents a lot of work, a lot of inner work. And I will always do that, because that to me is just the path of our soul, is to learn and grow. So here we are now.
Absolutely. Let me ask you this. What is the most profound Dolores Cannon book that you've read that had the greatest impact on you that you can think of?
Yeah. Well, I didn't mention this in the beginning when you asked. I forgot to answer it. But my journey to Dolores was being given the gift of the book Custodians. For me, that changed my life. That's what got me to go to her. So
for those that aren't, sorry to interrupt, for those that aren't aware of the book, could you briefly just talk about what that book talks about?
Oh,
you might have it on hand. Yeah.
I'm looking to see. Oh, I must have moved it. Anyway, so the book Custodians is about it's session stories that Dolores did while she was helping people with the Mutual UFO Network organization, MUFON. She worked with them for about 20 years, helping people that said they had experiences of contact with other beings. And so Dolores goes in with her technique, quantum healing hypnosis technique, and offers these sessions to people that were distraught because they had experiences they couldn't understand and nobody around them knew what to do with them. So here comes Mother Dolores, which I just love her. She comes in with her infinite wisdom and her technique and helps these people to realize that what happened to them, what they had memories that were lodged with fear. So their memories made them afraid, and they didn't understand. But every time she gave sessions to these people, they would go under, they would get the rest of the story. It was always some greater purpose, that they were helping humanity for some greater purpose. And yes, they were working with other types of beings, but heck, we have lots of different types of beings on this planet. Why wouldn't there be other ones, other places? I don't know. But this book is filled with story after story about how someone comes in, they're very afraid and confused. They don't know what happened to them. And then they come out going, oh my gosh, I'm part of something so much bigger. It's better than I thought. It isn't anything to be afraid of. In fact, I'm really lucky that I get to have these type of experiences. So she helped them change their perspective just by getting them to go into that deeper state of awareness where they remembered the real thing that happened, instead of having the memory be so tied together with fear, because the conscious mind fears what it doesn't understand. So they were having out of this world experiences that they didn't understand. So the conscious mind was terrified. Then she helped them to understand, and they could go live their lives without fear, knowing they were really part of, they were kind of like chosen. They were lucky to be a part of a bigger plan to help humanity. Is it all
Yeah.
positive? She never found anything negative.
That's a really good point, because I know in the community out there, there can be a lot of negative information and scary stuff. Even we see it in pop culture, particularly you look at most movies that touch the alien theme, and they're horrific, beings that are trying to wipe out humanity. I think that's lodged in a lot of our subconscious, is that something that we don't understand, we're trained to fear. But it was good that all of her information was very, very positive, and they're loving beings that, because some people won't even be familiar with that. That's kind of a territory that they're not even used to going into. But
it's a little far out for most people, I will say. So, but that was the book that changed my life, because I needed to go see Dolores, and that's what happened next.
Tell me about your first session that you had of QHHT. What, if you feel comfortable sharing, what sort of information came out for you personally?
Yeah, that was fun, because actually I went to Arkansas to be near Dolores, because I really wanted her to give me a session, but she was too busy. So I signed up for the class because I just wanted to be near this woman. So before I went, I looked for a practitioner in my area, and there really wasn't anybody kind of close enough for me. So I went to the class, came back. It was like a 3-day class then. And I had asked Dolores if she could give me a session, and it didn't work out. She was like, I'm leaving for China. I can't do it. I'm like, oh gosh, can you condense time? Anyway, she couldn't do it. So I said, what's the best way? Should I look for someone when I get back? She said, yeah. And even though I knew that I'd look for someone kind of nearby, I was like, okay, well, I know there isn't, but I'll go back and look again, and maybe I'll just pick someone that's farther away. But I went back after the weekend, like 3-day seminar, and there was magically someone 20 minutes away from me who hadn't been there 3 days before, right? So this is how the magic works. So I did get a session with this woman, Catherine, who became a great friend of mine. And interestingly, the recorder that I had was a digital recorder, and it didn't get turned on, right? So I knew at the time that I could have just said, here, I'll do it for you. But I knew I didn't need to, because I knew there was something else going on, and I knew I was going to be fine. And I knew I was going to remember all of it. And I remembered most of it. So here I'm going to tell you about it. And there was no recording of it. So this is the new consciousness, right? So I had a little trouble relaxing and connecting. And the funny part of that was there was a police station right next door. So there were sirens going off every once in a while. And I thought, how am I going to do this? I can't relax, right? But I did it anyway. So I was shown in my first session. At first, I remember when it started, I remember looking down and seeing what I was wearing, and it was changing rapidly. So I would see a blue dress, or this dress, or I would see all these things, all these outfits just going, and I was like, okay, well, I'm seeing a lot of different changes. And then it was sort of like, one was, okay, a deer skin skirt, and I tuned into that. That story came about. So I got to see sort of, I believe it was Native American woman for a first image of coming, into a scene. Native American woman, she had a baby on her back, and there was like a teepee, and I was at a river where these big mountains that were purplish in color. So I remember that was the first thing I saw. And she was sort of a woman that had a baby, and there was, a partner, and it wasn't very much of it, but it was that little bit was important for me to see that. And then I think we kind of went to another scene, and I switched out, and I saw myself as a gladiator. And it was a gladiator where I was racing chariots, and there was a weird feeling that these chariots were flying, like levitating. So I didn't want to say that because I felt silly, but she's like, oh, that's fine, of course, whatever, you can see what you see, and you just say it. So I saw this gladiator, and then it shifted, and I saw into like Oh, I know. I was sort of in a fog for a while, for a long while. It felt like I was saying, oh, that's swirling this way and swirling that way a long time. And then all of a sudden, I kept seeing this little point coming up through the clouds, but I didn't tell her, my practitioner, about it because I didn't think it was anything special. So I ignored it. So here's the thing. I ignored the small detail until I finally got so bored. I said, you know what? There is this little point of a triangle coming up through the clouds. And when I said that, the clouds whoosh, went down. I saw the Great Pyramid in front of me. I like flew back on the bed, and then the Sphinx comes up. So that little, the point of it was I was missing the details of my life looking for the big stuff, when really the little stuff is what unlocks the story. So it was important for me to understand, slow down, pay attention to the little things, and don't worry, the big stuff will show up. But I did see the Sphinx, the pyramid and the Sphinx. And I went from this gladiator type guy to him kind of looking into the pyramid, where I could see this group of light beings around a giant ball of light and a beam of light that went up through the pyramid. And they were all just hovering around it, like doing some kind of healing ceremony. And I knew that I wanted to do what they did. So it was a shift from being this gladiator to wanting to be a healer. And so I saw them kind of sitting there. My practitioner said, what's going on? And I said, I need to find out if I can do this. And she said, okay, why don't you ask them? And I did. And then they opened the circle to allow me in. And it was funny because she was trying to talk to me about what was happening. And I was annoyed because I was really busy with like communing with these light beings. And I was like, stop it. So like, just give me a minute here. I'm talking to these guys. Right. So the whole point was, I went from being sort of a fighter, a gladiator, to them being accepted. They said, yes, I could be in the healing. I could do the healing work. So I needed their permission for some reason to switch from being a fighter to a healer. So later, my practitioner asked what was the purpose for showing me that. And the higher self said, stop fighting, start healing. Like you had to do one to do the other. Fighting keeps us in a state of resistance and struggle and conflict and division within ourselves. Healing is unifying ourselves, accepting all aspects of ourselves, becoming one with ourselves. No more fighting, no more division. So isn't that a message we can use as we see ourselves and the world? You want to heal, you got to stop fighting. You got to heal the divisions and start coming into
powerful. That's so powerful because we live in such a polarity in our world right now, don't we? We've got left versus right, us versus them. We've just got this divide that it seems to be more pronounced than ever. When we come together truly as humanity and recognize the oneness in all of us, and we become united, we are so powerful, really. And it can't be underestimated when people come and unify. I mean, that's something I feel really strongly about during these, I guess, dividing times, is to really recognize the oneness within all of us, and that we can connect with that greatest part of it ourselves, which is our innate oneness, and really let go of a lot of the labels around, gender and sex and race and all of these things, and really know that at our core we are all one.
Yes, absolutely. And we all make one together too. We're all parts of the oneness, and we all have one. We are one, and we are part and parcel to the oneness. We are it, and it is us, and we're all in this together. It's so amazing. And as you're speaking, I'm realizing we can do this right now. Each one of us can right now accept ourselves totally and completely, and accept others totally and completely. Now you'll make choices based on what you want to do and who you want to spend time with. But in this moment, right now, we can just choose to accept ourselves, good, bad, and everything in between, totally and completely. I am one. I accept myself. I forgive myself. Here I am. And I also accept everyone else for being just like they are. And I forgive them for anything that I might perceive they did incorrectly to me or anybody else. I'm just going to forgive everyone for everything for all times infinity. Amen. Right now, and go into a state of oneness. We can all do that whenever we want.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's such a good point. I can't, I can't think of what sort of world we would be in if we all had that same thought that, we saw
Yeah.
the oneness, and there'd be no reason for division, would there? Because it wouldn't matter what
Mhm.
someone's, positioning in life was. We would move past those labels and recognize the oneness in all of us. One question I wanted to ask you
Mm.
was, with your sessions that you do with QHHT, what is probably the main thing that people come to see you, or tell me some of the reasons someone would come for a session?
Well, I think a lot of the people that come through my office and have sessions, first they want to know what they're supposed to be doing, because a lot of them feel like they're supposed to be doing something. They have this urgency, like, I know I'm supposed to do something else, and what is it? Like, it's not what I'm doing in my day job. Like, they have a yearning and a
Mm,
strong feeling of there's something else they need to do, and there's urgency. This has been a common theme this whole past year and a half or so. Like, I know I'm supposed to be doing something. What is it? I got to find that out. And others, it's health related. So they've been holding energy in their body, who knows how long, and it's had to get bigger to show them that they need to learn something. There's something they need to learn about themselves. So it gets bigger to get their attention. So health issues. Um, Sometimes it's just curiosity, because they get a hold of this. Dolores pops up in videos and they go, "Who is this woman?" And then they all of a sudden realize they need to have a session. So she's working behind the scenes, just so you know.
yeah.
You know, she's helping everyone. But yeah, also I think sadness, anxiety, depression has been bringing people, because okay, let's face it, even though this world is going through times that are difficult and it's not always pleasant, it's helping us to get in touch with some of our feelings that are inside of us that maybe we would just gloss over if things didn't get hard around us. So it's helping us to bring up sadness inside ourselves and deal with it in a way like nothing else could. So I think sadness is bringing people anxiety, that kind of thing. Um, and it can be pretty much anything at all, but mostly people usually aren't feeling so great inside, and they're coming to figure out why. They want to learn
Yeah,
and feel
really good
better.
point. And I think, we're seeing a lot of this with the pandemic, is that a lot of people are experiencing anxiety, depression, maybe because they feel that they're not getting their normal social needs met. And then maybe it's kind of like you were saying earlier, this adversity causes people to awaken from this slumber of being really comfortable. I see it as, like, I think for particularly younger generations, they've had it really easy for most of their life. They've not faced any great adversity. And all of a sudden now they are. And there's a lot of energy there that needs to be shifted and transmuted. I think this is going to be a wonderful opportunity for people like you and I to help people really learn to transmute a lot of that and let go, because I
Right.
think people are searching right now. They're probably on the internet at home and they're finding videos like this, and they're finding Dolores Cannon's videos on YouTube and so on. And it's really starting a process of awakening for those people.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a beautiful time to wake up, because we have resources in place now, and so many people, so many teachers on the planet waiting to help the ones who want help. So it's amazing. It's amazing. It's a great opportunity right now to go into our knowingness, to heal ourselves, to explore consciousness in general, and perception, because it can change everything. It can change our lives from sad to happy. Our perception is so powerful. Dolores used to say, our thoughts are things, and our thoughts create, and we're very powerful. And when you know this, you might mind your thoughts more. I don't know. Some days are better than others, but to know that we can do this, to know who we are, and to understand the impact that we do have in our lives and those around us. It's a great time to be alive for that reason. Doesn't mean it's going to be pleasant and feel good every day, but it means we are going to make some change, and we're going to grow.
Yeah. And I think, this time we're living now has been long foretold. I know, Christianity described it as, a new heaven and a new earth. And it's been sort of spoken about, I know other spiritual teachers have spoken about a shift in consciousness for a long time, but we're starting to see that, aren't we? We're starting to really see this new consciousness emerge out of perhaps the ashes or the old world that we were so consumed with.
Yes, exactly. I mean, it is in a way the ashes or the burning down of old systems that creates the fertilizer for growth. This is a natural process. In the forest fires, the fire burns off all the dead wood and creates this ash that then promotes the new soil being rich in nutrients to grow new trees, new structures, whatever. It is a metaphor.
Yeah. Great metaphor. I saw that personally here in Australia. As you know, we had some of the worst bushfires here in hundreds of years. And I saw one part which was starting to see that new growth come through. And it was a beautiful thing to witness, because out of the ashes was a rising new fresh life. And it is a very natural thing. Out of darkness, out of death, out of destruction emerges something new. I'm really excited out of, maybe we haven't seen the first flowering just yet, really obviously, but a new season. It's actually springtime here, just the 1st of September here in Australia. We've just hit spring. And I'm starting to see little flowers pop up, but it's just the starting of that flowering. I know in a week's time there'll be so much more flowering occurring, but it's so great to perceive that first flowering. And I think we're seeing that with human consciousness, the flowering of human consciousness coming into what many describe as a golden age in human history, an age of freedom, of enlightenment. What would you say to those people? Because I know there's a lot of people out there right now that are in fear, and they're maybe creating within their mind this really negative view of the future, and they're really afraid that we're going into something dark. What would you say to those people?
Probably the first thing I would say would be, you're okay, and then things are fine. And a lot of this just has to do with our thoughts about worst case scenarios or things that we've been told. But a lot of that, remember, is our thinking mind, our personality, our head talking. And that isn't necessarily probably going to be all true. But if people could just stop for a minute and drop down in their heart, even put their hands over their heart and just go, okay, I may have these thoughts about things, but the truth may be more aligned with we're all fine. And that, I know this is going to sound a little funny to some people, but the heart is the center of our being, and it is where love lives. And love is the most powerful energy in the universe. It's creation. So if people could just take a moment and sort of stop thinking so much, and stop overthinking, and stop kind of obsessively thinking about negative things, and just drop down in their hearts and think of somebody they love and themselves, love themselves, but just start going, I love you. I love you, yourself. I love my family. I love this, whatever. I love the earth. I love humanity. I love the universal life force energy. I love God. I mean, we're all a lot of different spiritual traditions say, put spirit first, like, God, I love you. And maybe even ask God for help. God, can you help me? Or whatever words you use for that.
And
Um,
it is the most potent, powerful force in the universe,
yeah,
is the vibration of love. You said it's a creative force. I love that. It's creation itself that has birthed us into existence. And that is the power of love. The power of love
it
creates.
is.
It doesn't have hate within it. And it's something I think the world needs more of. And we can bring
It's
that into the world, can't we, personally?
Yes, every single person that focuses, that drops down to their heart and gets into a love frequency can help more people, can help themselves and more people. And like, seriously, I know this sounds weird, but if people are worried and fearful, they'd probably benefit from having a huge hug from someone they love.
Yeah.
And if you don't have someone around you, then hug yourself and tell yourself you love yourself,
Yeah.
because there's
Yeah.
a soothing balm that comes, like it's like that thing that helps a little child when they're afraid, is to just hold them, hug them, and love them and tell them everything is fine. We sometimes have to do this to ourselves, but maybe our friends and family too. We we got to get out of our heads so much, and the head is fine, but it's really the heart that's supposed to be leading the energy, and the head can cooperate and collaborate with the heart, but we're really in our heads too much as humans. We got a little too out of balance, so either imagine something better than what you're afraid of. So get in your imagination or your heart. You got two places you can pick besides the left brain. I don't know. Fear kind of lives in the head. It does. It's the
Yeah.
thought.
Yeah, no,
So it's good to
absolutely.
know what it is. Yeah.
Yeah. And this is something that I always tell people, often people are waiting for fear to disappear from their lives. And I always
Mm.
am reminded of a book I read years ago called, Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. And
Beautiful.
the book talked about predominantly, if you're waiting for a day that fear is going to completely leave your life, you're going to be waiting a long time. But it's using fear, feeling it anyway, feeling it, acknowledging it, but then do the thing that you're afraid of anyway. Because I think some of us can have this notion, if we're going to get to some nirvana where we're going to be free of fear, and we're going to be sort of sitting on a cloud somewhere and everything's going to be perfect. And life doesn't work that way, and we come up disappointed, don't we? So if we feel fear and we recognize it, we acknowledge it, but then we act according to our conscience and what we know we're to be doing. I'll give you a perfect example. for
Good. I
me
love this.
making
Yeah.
for me making videos, initially when I started doing this type of thing, I thought, I can't do that, I'm afraid. But some people say people fear public speaking worse than death itself, which is interesting, isn't it? But that's how strong
Hmm.
fear can be around
Yeah.
putting yourself out there publicly. And I felt the best way to overcome that was to do it anyway. And
Beautiful.
that might help someone else out there that may be wanting to share what they do. They want to create a video. They want to put themselves out there more because that's what they feel they're called to do. It would be encouraging that person just to do that. And it may feel foreign and uncomfortable, and you may want to judge every, action, word, mannerism that you put out there, but you did it. And the next one will be easier, and so on.
Yes. Yes. So good. That's so good that you say that. It's reminding me of something Julia Cannon wrote in her book, Soul Speak, where she faces down her fear. So instead of running from it, or instead of like, trying to get away from it in some way or avoid it, she turns and she looks at fear in the eye and sees it differently, sees it as this little kind of funny little monster thing. And I think maybe she asked it, what is there that you want me to learn? So you face your fear and say, in my spiritual practice, we say, what is the blessing? What is the lesson? And you tune into yourself to see what comes to you.
Yeah. And I think, fear is often just a mechanism for protection. I think
Mm.
we might have a fear around doing a certain thing. Often it's just there. That's the left analytical part of our brain trying to keep us safe. But when we realize that, hey, in order for me to come into my greatest growth, I'm going to have to let go of some of this fear. And
Yes.
actually, I don't need to be safe. I need to be a little unsafe and take a couple of risks, because that's going to get me to the next level. So I think it's working and transmuting a lot of those energies, isn't it? And
So good. Yeah.
what was the greatest fear that, if you don't mind sharing, that you needed to overcome in your life?
Oh boy. Oh, I think I was very, very shy. I was a shy, sensitive person. So even just speaking my
Yeah.
truth, like speaking or speaking up for myself,
Mm.
and then of course you can kind of just let that roll out to any job you have, having to stand up in front of a group and speak. And then, even doing these kind of like live things could be that. And of course, now my new thing is like I'm writing a book and I'm going to need to get that out there. And this is like a scary
Yeah.
thing. I've never done this before. It's sort of scary, but it's like, no, I got to do it. It's taking longer than I thought because there's like fear, but got to do it anyway.
Tell us more
So.
about your book that you're writing.
Oh, okay. This is good. This will help me get it focused again.
Yeah.
So because of my practices, getting meditating and getting guidance and doing a lot of writing, the idea came to me that I really wanted to do. The information was really, I found really helpful, and it's not coming from me, my personality, it's coming through me from the higher guidance. So I would read it and I would feel like, this is really amazing. It was comforting, it was helpful, it was uplifting, and I really had a feeling like I wanted to share that. So I talked to my guidance team, and I said, what can we do with this to help people? And they did say we could write a book. And I said, okay, we could write a book like this. You'll just kind of stream in the information and I'll write it. And
Great.
absolutely,
So you're doing it, are you
that's it.
structuring it similar to how Dolores wrote her books, where you're sharing some of the session information as well?
No, actually, what I'm doing, it is kind of like Dolores said, but not a part we talk about. Dolores wanted people to have one session so they would know who they are. And instead of having to be dependent on a practitioner or a technique, they would go directly to their own wisdom to get their guidance.
Mm-hmm.
So that is what I did. And I started getting guidance. And many people are doing this.
Yeah.
But so I feel like I'm practicing the spirit of what she taught us to do. So it's not about sessions, it's about the guidance that's actually coming through, that it seems to be uplifting information. I'm calling it the Book of Light. So it's going to be a sort of a light book to read that'll help people to feel good and inspire them, and just kind of be guiding them through common life situations, not even life situations. It's just, I don't even know how to describe it. But it was all kind of laid out for me. The chapters, I'd go, okay, what are the chapters going to be? And it was like, boom, boom, boom. Okay, today we're doing this. It was all given. So I just listened, and it so far seems like it makes sense. Once in a while, when I got down about it, I would say, oh, how am I going to do this? How am I going to get this done? And they would say, why don't you just read the book yourself and see how you feel? And when you see how you feel, then that will help you keep going. And I was like, okay. So I'm getting guidance the whole time. Now, who knows how this will go, but I'm going to do it anyway,
Well, we'll
this
put
is the way we do it.
When you release the book, you'll have to come back on and talk about the book. So you got the pressure on you now.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It's positive pressure. I can do it. And coming from you, are you kidding me? That's a blessing. Thank you.
That's the good thing about when you put stuff out there, isn't it? You got more pressure on to make it happen. But that's the great thing about accountability. I think that's one thing that's underestimated these days, being accountable to other people. Yeah. And I think this is why when we share things, it does keep us to account, so that we really do push past our own limitations. Because I know that, particularly doing anything public, I think it really helps to kind of push us, outside of that comfort zone. So, obviously, I think this will help you as well. When are you predicting the book's going to be finished?
Okay, more accountability. So I want to do it by the end of this year. So it's almost to a point where I can start figuring out what to do to get it published. Yeah.
Great. Great.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm excited. I know that'll happen, because I know when you're supposed to do something, then the way is made for you. So I can see that happening for you as well. And we're certainly excited about about seeing it when it comes out.
You're so kind. Thank you for that. And thanks for the encouragement, and that I'm inspired now. So thank you. Yeah.
Good. Now tell us where people can find you if they're maybe in West Massachusetts, isn't it?
Yeah, we say Western Mass because it's really one state, but I'm in the Western part. Yeah.
So just so I know. So how far away are you from, say, Boston, central Boston? Just so people have a bit of an understanding of where that is.
I'm about 2 hours west of Boston. Yep. And it's a straight shot out. So it's pretty easy to get to. I think some people say it's about 3 hours north of New York City. Some people drive up for their session. So that kind of thing.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, people are obviously driving to get to you for a session. So how would someone go about contacting you if they've seen you today, they connect with your energy, they want to have a session with you? And we can put something on the screen as well to just let people know where to connect. But where's the best place for people to find you?
Well, the first place I usually say is they can go to the QHHTofficial.com website and find a practitioner under level 3. I'm there.
Right. Okay.
And that's the first one. And then my website, it's healingworks-salon.com.
We'll pop that up on the screen too, so they can see that. Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you. And then if they just want to email me, it's all one word, healingworksalon@gmail.com. So that's those 3 ways are pretty simple and straightforward. Yeah.
Perfect. Oh, wonderful.
Thank you.
And is there anything else that you are doing as well as QHHT sessions? Do you do coaching or counseling or anything else? Or is it just those sessions?
I do sessions, but I also am one of the moderators for the QHHT official forum. So being a moderator allows me to kind of help and support people in improving their skills and feeling more confident with their sessions. And I love that. I love helping people to get better at things. So that's a great part of it too. Yeah. So that, and just spending time in nature. Those are the things I do.
I know. I try to do that. I don't get to do it every day, but most days I get to. And I certainly hear it's raining here today. It's pretty heavy raining here where I am. So it's not probably going to happen today, but it's really important. And I think that's a great place to end on it. Just the importance of connecting to nature. And I think it's something, particularly in these, difficult times for many, it's something that's going to really bring a lot of grounding into someone's life.
Yeah, it's really, I think it's important too, and it feels good. So that's nice. I think when we feel good, we just radiate that more. But I want to thank you so much for allowing me to be here. I feel you're my inspiration. I go to your site to look and see and hear what you put out, because it's so uplifting. And I just want to say it's an honor to be able to do this with you. Thank you so much. I feel so grateful that I get to be a part of something with you. I love your energy. I'm so happy.
Thank you. Well, promise me you'll come back. And when you finish that book, I'm holding you to account. You're going to come back and share with us. And I can't wait to read it. And I certainly, hopefully I can get a copy before we do this, and I can ask you some questions around it, because I'm excited about seeing that information come through. But thanks again for joining us. And I know a lot of people will really get a lot out of this video and the beautiful words that you shared today. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's really a pleasure. Thank you.
And we'll see you next time in the next video.